Hey, I'm Stephanie, and it's time to talk about makeup. Welcome to Makeup Monday. Today, I'm going to be doing the eyeshadow palette tag. It was created by Samantha March and Allie Glines. They're two marvelous creators here on YouTube. On the off chance that you don't know who they are, I will link both of their channels in the show notes so that you can check them out because I've been watching them for a while and they're really fun. Basically, the whole point of this eyeshadow palette tag is they have given us all a list of prompts, and anybody who wants to is invited to respond to them with the palettes that these prompts bring to mind. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. If that sounds interesting, then stick around. So let's jump right into it. Prompt number 1 is all-time favorite. It was really hard for me to choose an all-time favorite eyeshadow palette because as much as I love all makeup, I love complexion, I love cheeks, lips, brows, lashes, I love it all. But if there's one category of makeup that I really have a vice for, it is eyeshadow. Out of my entire makeup kit, I think my eyeshadow collection is definitely the most robust. So it was very hard for me to narrow this down, and I ended up getting it down to 2. Here they are. The first one is this Viseart. It is the Neutral Mattes 01 palette. And the reason I chose this is my second one. The first one has literally been around the world and back with me multiple times. I used it all the time. I loved it, and it was pretty destroyed. So I ended up buying a brand new one because I definitely get a lot of use out of it. And I know a lot of people don't like the packaging of these because it seems a little bit utilitarian, but I have to say, first of all, I was bringing it when I was traveling, and it made life really easy because it was so sleek and it was easy to put in my makeup bag. All these colors they're just really easy to use. I could use it on my whole face. I could contour anything I needed to. It was just super useful. And the thing is, apparently they're bringing all of these out in a smaller, more consumer-friendly formula, or not formula, but format, packaging-wise. There's going to be less product, but it's also going to be cheaper, and the packaging is going to be cuter. And so, to be honest, I also want all of their palettes in that format, but I don't need them, and I'm on a low buy, so I am not going to buy any of them. The second palette that I chose for this prompt was the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette. I'm going to say the same thing that everyone says about this palette when they talk about it, and that's that it should never have been limited edition. This is one of the best palettes that ABH ever made, and I don't understand why it's not permanent, but it's not. This palette has also come around the world and back with me. I've been able to do countless looks with this. If you've ever happened to watch my musician channel and seen some of my vlogs, this is usually the palette that I am applying on camera, in a dark, badly lit backstage room. And you can even get good looks under those conditions, which is why I love it so much. Plus, I'm a sucker for steampunk, and there's even a shade called steampunk in here. There's one called dystopian. There's one called cyborg. So, not only are the colors up my alley, not only are the formulas really easy to use, but the names, the shade names, they're perfect. So definitely also an all-time favorite. Prompt number 2 is a new favorite, and mine is the Natasha Denona Gold Palette. I had been wanting this one for years, ever since it came out. I had been lusting after it. I was like, that is my color story. I can't wait to buy that someday. But I kept looking at what I already had in my makeup kit, and I was like, as beautiful as it is, I don't need it right now. I'll get it someday. I want to use what I have first. And then the palette got discontinued. And I was like, no, my palette. However, it is just eyeshadow, so I got over it. But then one day I found it at a shop here in Munich, and it was on clearance. And so I got it. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did. My mother is so good at knitting, and she once knit me something in exactly this color scheme. It's not a shawl, it's not a poncho. It's like a shancho, a ball. It's a beautiful piece of knitwear. And now I can wear it together with this, and it's the perfect combination. So I love this palette. I'm a big fan. Speaking of my mother, the next prompt is keep for the memories. And this is an eyeshadow palette that I definitely keep for the memories. It is Clinique's The Best of Black Honey palette. And I got this at Sephora when I went on a trip there with my mother. And she's actually the one who convinced me to buy this. I wasn't going to buy it because I thought it looked kind of boring. But she's like, no, it'll look beautiful. And she's right. It really does look beautiful. So to be honest, I don't keep it just for the memories because I really do get very nice looks every time I use this. But every time I pick it up, I think of that trip with my mom. So thanks for the memories. Prompt number 4 is underrated. And to be honest, I think the most underrated palette of all is the one that we can create ourselves. As cheesy and Bob Ross as that sounds, I kind of think it's true. I've recently gotten very into single eyeshadows, indie brands, and things like that. And I think it's really exciting and fun to curate my own color stories and, mix and match formulas at my own will. I don't know. I think it's fun. I enjoy watching content about that. I just recently discovered a beauty YouTuber, actually. I think her channel's called Brains and Beauty, and she has the most creative ideas about curating her own palettes. I'm a big fan, so I'm also going to list her in my show notes because if you're interested in that sort of thing, she's definitely worth checking out. However, I realize that this is probably not what Samantha and Allie meant when they created this prompt. So I also chose a professionally curated eyeshadow palette. But before I mention it, I just want to say, maybe it's not underrated. Maybe everyone and their brother is talking about this palette and I've just missed it because, I haven't watched all of YouTube. And so maybe I've missed something, but I haven't really I think I've seen one person talk about this palette and that's it. And I just kind of happened to discover it online and I saw it was on sale and it just looked nice. And so I was like, that looks really good. I think I'm going to try it. And I risked it and it ended up being really worth it. This palette is from a brand that I honestly know nothing about. It's called the Signature Palette and it's by Vanity Makeup. The packaging is beautiful. It's weighty. If you know Pat McGrath shadows, I think it's almost like the same component, maybe just in different colors. But the colors in here they're just your everyday neutral shadows. But these sparkly shades, they're like magical. They're like stardust on your eyes. They've just got this beautiful sparkly effect. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but this is what I'm wearing today. I think it's going to be beautiful on stage. If I ever get back to playing live ever again after the big C, we'll see. But I think it's underrated. Unless, of course, everyone's talking about it, then right on. Prompt number 5 is not a favorite, but can't get rid of. And for me, that is this Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I think the reason it's not my favorite is because of the way the colors are arranged, actually. Because the formula is great. And you can even see, I have 2 shadows are missing because they're in a separate palette that I built myself. I'm in the middle of another project, and I created my own palette of singles in the context of that project. And I'll link that video in the show notes in case you want to see it. But I'm constantly using these shadows as single shadows. I'm just never using this palette as a palette. And that's why I'm not getting rid of it, because it still gets use all the time. I think what I need to do is just rearrange the shades in here so that it's more pleasing to the eye. Maybe then I would be willing to use it as a palette. And I think the only reason I haven't is I have this weird thing. I'm like, but that's not the order that the artist intended. But I mean, who cares? Who cares? Natasha and I aren't hanging out drinking coffee. She's not going to ever see that my palette has been rearranged. And even if she did, she probably wouldn't care. So I should just go ahead and do it. But this, I don't think I'm going to get rid of it just because I use it all the time. Just, not in and of itself as a standalone palette. The next prompt is Fave Collab. And wow, have there been some fab collabs out there that I've been really interested in. There's also several creators out there who I would really love to support. For example, right now, there's a collab between Angelica Nyquist and Odin's Eye Cosmetics. And I love Angelica. I think the color story she chose was great for her Hella palette. I have always wanted to try the Odin's Eye formula. It seems like, the perfect palette for me to try. However, I'm on a low buy this year, so I'm not buying makeup right now. And that means it's just really bad timing for me. So, I'm sure that someday maybe I'll have the right timing and can pick up some nice collabs, but so far it hasn't worked out. The next prompt is didn't expect to love. And I thought I was going to have a hard time with this one because, like I mentioned, I usually try to consider palettes before I purchase them. I watch a lot of reviews. I try to swatch them in store if I can. I really think, do I need this in my collection? Is this something I'm really going to be able to use? And so I was like, well, if I buy an eyeshadow palette, I'm expecting to love it. However, I ended up finding 2 palettes that fit this for me. The first one, I was visiting my mom. I was doing my makeup at her vanity, and I saw this product sitting on her vanity and asked if I could try it. And she's like, yeah, sure, go for it. So, I felt like I just needed a little something, something on my eyes, and I ended up trying this. This is the Fenty Beauty Kilowatt Foil Highlighter in Sandcastle and Minted Mojito. And this is the shade that I put on my eyes that day. And I ended up using this as like a one and done shadow for the rest of my visit because I loved it so much. And I ended up, leaving and, this stayed on her vanity. And I thought about this shadow for a long time. I missed it. I tried to, dupe it in my collection and I never found anything that was quite the same. So when this a couple of years later went on sale for half price, I was like, that's mine. So I got it for like $12 and I have loved it ever since. And the reason I didn't expect to love it is because I'm not the sort of person that puts my highlighters on my eyes. I mean, I've done it, but I would never buy a highlighter as an eyeshadow until I got this one as an eyeshadow. The blue, by the way, is also gorgeous, but there's something about that Sandcastle shade that's just very me. The second palette was one that I expected to love, but I didn't realize that I was going to love it for everyday looks because it's the Natasha Denona Lila palette. And just in case you don't know what the inside of it looks like, it's quite colorful. And I tend to wear a lot of neutrals. So, I thought, oh, this will be great because I have kind of blue-green eyes. So depending on the color eyeshadow I wear, I can change the color of my eyes. So if I wear orange, they tend to look more blue. If I wear, pinks and purples, they tend to look more green. And I was like, oh, this will be great if I want to look like I have green eyes. It'll look great on stage. If I want to do a dramatic look if I'm going out, it'll be fun. However, I didn't realize I was going to be able to get so many everyday looks out of this palette. And I love it. I've used it so much. It's also one of my favorite palettes. And I didn't expect to love it as an everyday palette. My 2021 favorite, I can wrap it up real quick. It's my Natasha Denona Gold palette. The palette that sparks joy, all of them. All of them spark joy, without exception. They all spark joy. But Natasha Denona Gold. The next prompt is the newest palette in your collection. And for me, that's the Hindash Beautopsy palette. Now, I have to admit, when I first saw the color story for this palette, I thought it was kind of barfalicious. I saw this gray next to this orangey red next to this black, and I was like it's just not my thing. However, I remember back when I was first getting into makeup, one of the traps that I fell into was the trap of the aesthetic. Beautiful packaging, housing a kind of useless product. But the same can happen in reverse. There can be a truly useful product that you don't purchase simply because you don't like the aesthetic. And I didn't want to fall into that trap. So I decided I would listen to some reviews and just see what people had to say. And I'm going to repeat some of those things here because I find them to be true myself. This palette is made as a face palette, not just an eyeshadow palette. And so the formula is a little bit different. It feels like face powder. It's not quite as beefy, I guess, as a typical eyeshadow is. And that means that you can get extremely soft gradients. And that's the sort of thing that I love. And you can use these as blushes, you can use them for contour, you can use them to contour and shape the eye, you can use it to add a little bit of flush. And I was just thinking to myself, you know what? That actually sounds like it's right up my alley. And the reality is, it is right up my alley. I think it works amazingly. I think that it really is a genius palette. However, I don't think it's for everybody. I have friends that when they open an eyeshadow palette, they have their lid shade and their crease shade and maybe a deepening shade, and that's it. Like they have their shades that they want to use, and that's that. And here, anytime, like because they're gradient palettes, anywhere that you put your brush is going to give you a different result every time. And so I can see that some people might not appreciate that. But for someone like me who loves to experiment with shading and gradients and stuff, I think this is great. I think it's genius. I enjoy using it. And I just saw that he came out with a new palette. Like he just teased it. And it's like the same exact concept with the gradients, but it's with color. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But I'm on a low buy, so I can't buy it, at least not anytime soon. So I'm just going to admire it from afar for now. And the very last prompt for this tag is the first palette you used in 2022. If I'm being completely honest, I used my own palette. This was just a bunch of singles that I put together. They were very basic, very neutral, very boring, but go-to shades for me. And I just wanted to keep things simple because I was traveling. And so this is what I used. However, if we're talking like the first officially curated palette I used in 2022, the second I got home, this is what got put on my eyes. Surprise, surprise. Natasha Denona Gold. If you've made it this far, hey, congratulations, we've made it. That was my eyeshadow palette tag video. If you've also made a video like this, I hope you'll say hello and let me know in the comments because I would love to see it. I've been slowly but surely making my way through this playlist, and it's been really fun to see what everybody's interested in, to kind of discover undercurrents in the makeup community, and, you know, just to hear people talk about eyeshadow because I love eyeshadow. Seems funny because it's just colored dirt, but wow, am I obsessed with it. Thank you to Samantha and Allie for creating a tag that we can all just jump on board with. I hope you have a wonderful week and that we can all remember that even stumbling can be a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.